Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens. I'm a teacher and author, and this is English Nerd. So today I wanted to bring you 10 things that you probably didn't know about Hamlet. Now, if you are watching this video, chances are you are a fan of Hamlet, so you'll probably know some things like the fact that Hamlet, the play, was translated into Klingon, or that his son Hamnet died suddenly from the plague. There's the popular book out right now that's basically about that. I wanted to do a slightly deeper dive into some things that I've more recently discovered about Hamlet as I was doing research for Laertes, my newest book, which is coming out July 29th of this year, 2022. It's a dark academia retelling of the story from Laertes' point of view, set in the 1920s. So that one's really fun. Put it on your list, pre-order. But enough of that. Let's get to the list. So, number one, the actual castle where Hamlet is supposed to have taken place, which is Kronborg Castle in Denmark, has a statue of Hercules and the Hydra within a very easy walking distance. I mean, it's there almost as part of the castle. Now, if you know the play, Hamlet references Hercules more than once. He compares his father to Hercules and various things, so there actually is a statue. There also was a sign by the Globe Theater of Hercules holding up the world as well. So there you go, that's fact number one. Number two, in Act 1, Scene 4 of Hamlet, there is a big party that the main characters don't go to, but they hear the cannons being blasted off from the castle walls over the water, and there's clearly some carousing going on. So Hamlet explains that that happens when the king wakes up in the middle of the night and wants to party. That is a real thing. I reached out to the people at Kronborg Castle, and they would have these big parties where they would set off cannons in the middle of the night, and their neighbors were not super happy about that, but they were the kings of the sound at that time. They would collect dues from all the ships that would sail past that eastern coast of Denmark. Number three, this is possibly my favorite. Perhaps I should have left it for the end, but I'm going in no particular order. So there's a part in Act 3, Scene 2, right after the play within a play, The Murder of Gonzago, when Hamlet turns to Horatio and starts singing this nonsense song, part of which calls Horatio Damon dear. Is it a real song? I'm not entirely sure, but it seems pretty made up on the spot, which is typical of Hamlet and some of the other characters in this play. Now, when I started looking more deeply into some of the details that I had previously overlooked, like who cares about the reference to Damon, I found some very fascinating things. So there's a story about two men called Damon and Pythias. This used to be a lot more of a well-known story, but it has since fallen out of fashion. But these two men were apparently so close that when Pythias was accused of treason against the king, he was sentenced to death, and he said, I need to take care of my worldly affairs. I need to go take care of my family. The king said, obviously you can't just go and skip town unless somebody is willing to stand in your place. Now, Damon agreed to stand in Pythias's place to die for him in the event that Pythias did not return. Now, there are several versions of this story, but my favorite version has it so that on the assigned day of the execution, Pythias does not show up, and Damon and the king are left in the position of having to make that choice whether to kill Damon in Pythias's place. So they get everything ready. They're about to kill Damon, and then in rushes Pythias at the very last second, and he says, I'm sorry. I was attacked by pirates on the way here, and I'm here now. Please do not kill Damon. I'll do anything. And the king is so struck by the friendship, the closeness of these two men, that he actually asks to be part of their group, and they decline his request, but he's so touched that he actually lets both Pythias and Damon go. Now, if you're familiar with the play Hamlet, there are some really intriguing parallels to be made there. I mean, you have the very, very close male companions, you have the pirates reference, you have the traitorous action against the king. Lots of really fascinating stuff. So I know that was kind of long, but again, it's probably my favorite. So that is number 3. Number 4 is that Hamlet has not been overwhelmingly, well, it has been overwhelmingly loved throughout the several hundred years since it was written. However, not everybody has loved it. Famously, Voltaire, the famous writer, said that it was so bad that it must have been written by a drunken savage. End quote. And even T.S. Eliot called it an artistic failure. Once again, that is a direct quotation because of certain things like how a lot of the action you would expect to see on stage, such as the pirate attack, don't happen on stage, and some of the things that you would expect to happen off stage, such as the internal struggle, mental issues, those happen on stage instead. So those are some people who really didn't like it. Okay, my next fact is another that I just found so fascinating. There's been a very long history, of course, of not only on-stage performances of Hamlet, but also film versions of Hamlet. There have been so many, from Mel Gibson to Kenneth Branagh to David Tennant to whoever. But the very first one, which came out in, I want to say 1921, it was definitely the 1920s, early 1920s, if I recall correctly, starred a woman, Asta Nielsen. She was a Danish silent film star, one of the biggest of the 20s. She had these dark, striking eyes, and obviously very expressive face because they didn't have the sound to go with the actions. So she was kind of androgenized in the way that she looked. She was dressed all in black. She had a short haircut that was also dark, and she was the very first on-screen Hamlet, because at the time, Hamlet was considered a more feminine character, which I did not know. I'm not entirely sure for the reasons, of all the reasons for that, but it was just a very surprising choice. I know that there is a legacy of various women playing Hamlet, but I didn't understand that it went that far back. So yeah, Asta Nielsen. Next, there is the fact that Hamlet has been performed not only on stage, not only on screen, but also in prison as well. Actual murderers have gone through various programs where it's meant to help them not return to that life of continuing to commit crimes when they're out of prison. And so various art-based programs have arisen that have to varying degrees of success, but some of them have been quite successful, where people put on plays and read these classic works such as Crime and Punishment and things like that in prison. One of the more famous of these programs is one that has the inmates put on a performance of Hamlet. There are some really fascinating videos if you want to watch the process and some interviews with the inmates and how it kind of helped them to not only understand the characters, but process some of their own thoughts when they were committing crimes that seemed to make sense at the time. So there's that. The next one, man, these are some of my greatest hits. Most of these I found out more recently. Some of them, like this one, I've known for a little while, but still super fascinating. Now, we don't have all of the playbills for the different plays that Shakespeare put on. He was not intending to even publish his own work. He was very much in the moment, and once things were acted out, then he kind of moved on. So a lot of that is lost. However, there are some some accounts of who played which character in the different original performances, and we know who Shakespeare cast himself as in Hamlet. And the more I've thought about it, the more I just think it's this kind of brilliant choice. So Shakespeare originally played the ghost of Hamlet's father. I think this is really interesting because his son, of course, was named Hamnet, which is just a variation of the name Hamlet, basically. And Hamnet died suddenly and tragically when he was only 11, and Shakespeare was away in London, not in Stratford-upon-Avon, where his son lived at the time. So having a sort of role reversal where it's the father that has died suddenly, who's speaking after the grave to his son Hamlet, I think it's a poignant choice for Shakespeare to have made. Okay, we're on to number 8, I believe. Okay, so Abraham Lincoln was a big fan of theater, as we all know, and he liked Shakespeare a lot. There's a letter that he wrote to a friend that talked about his preferences with Hamlet. He enjoyed Hamlet, but he felt like the to be or not to be soliloquy was not the best speech in the play. And I've actually felt that way for years. I mean, is it a piece of art? Obviously it is. But, Hamlet's second soliloquy, "Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I," is at least as good. I prefer it. Abraham Lincoln said that his favorite soliloquy, the one that he thought was better than To Be or Not to Be, was actually Claudius's one soliloquy. He gives one speech. Again, if you're familiar with the play, then you'll remember this. It's in Act 3, Scene 3, right after the play within a play has been shut down. He goes by himself to attempt to pray because he feels guilty for killing his brother. But he feels like he's caught between this rock and a hard place because although he suffers from guilt, he also doesn't want to give up what he did that crime to get. He doesn't want to give up his crown or his kingdom or his queen or any of the reasons that he killed in the first place. So I think it's a fantastic speech that does not get as much recognition. So when I saw that it was Abraham Lincoln's favorite speech, I felt like, I'm not alone. There's somebody else who is famous who also really likes that speech as well. Okay, number 9 and 10 are both just these small details, but if you are obsessed with the play, like I'm obsessed with the play, then perhaps you'll appreciate these. So in Hamlet, it is never explained, but everyone, from people in Denmark to people in Norway, of course, is threatening Denmark throughout the play, everyone dislikes Poland. So much so that when there is a truce called between Denmark and Norway, Norway says, well, we have this army that was all ready to attack you, but is it okay if we go through Denmark just to attack Poland? And Claudius, king of Denmark, says, oh, sure, yeah. Nobody explains what the deal is with Poland, but for whatever reason, it's just nobody sides with them in this play. Now, the name Polonius actually means a Polish man. I don't quite know what to make of that. I don't know if it was intentional. I don't know if it was just the subconscious. I suspect it was probably some subconscious thing with Shakespeare, but I looked up the meaning of all the main characters' names at one point, and that one kind of made me giggle. I thought, a Polish man. Okay, as the advisor to the king of Denmark, but the buffoonish advisor, the one that nobody really likes. So there's that. And then finally, going back to that to be or not to be speech, there is a line that says, who would suffer the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, etc. The whips and scorns of time, I had not thought anything about that line because it seems fairly straightforward. The whips and scorns of time, the difficulties and the harsh aspects of it. However, when I was looking at different versions of this play than the one that I use at school, that's the one that I know backwards and forwards, the one from school, I noticed that there was a footnote about whips and scorns, and I went, oh, okay, well, what's that? Turns out that those are fencing terms. There are a few places throughout the play where there are fencing terms just before you get to the final fencing match in the last act. So it's references to these rapid motions, these rapid movements in fencing. So even in the midst of his to be or not to be speech, he compares life and death to a variety of things, of course, to sleep and that kind of thing. But one of them is a fencing match. So you're sparring against the difficulties of life, which becomes really poignant by the end when, of course, it is the fencing match that is the ultimate ending of the play. So there you go, 10 things that you probably did not know about Hamlet. There are a lot more, and I love to learn more about Hamlet. So if you have another that you think I might not have heard of, take up that challenge, write that in the comments below. And remember to pre-order Laertes. It is, again, a dark academia retelling of Hamlet from Laertes' point of view, set in the 1920s. It has really good early responses so far. It comes out July 29th. Make sure to be there. All right, until next time, bye.